Tommy Reynolds has his gun out. He's pointing the gun, and all of a sudden, I see this woman.
They say it's on every single station. They're saying that Daddy died.
He said there was an accident and your father is no longer with us.
In real life, I'm not like that.
And the Mario test was disgusting.
One night I jumped out of a car doing 60 miles an hour because I was addicted.
Salute, Mob Tube. Salute, Mob Tube. How's everybody doing tonight? Let's see who we got in here. Got Dr. Vinny Boombots, U.S. Army Combat Medic. Thank you for your service, sir. Florida Attorney, Sven Larson, Kevin Mack, Ken C. Glad to see you guys here. Yankees for Life, Marshall Dealin. Brooklyn Bounce. We should all hit the like button now. I agree. Thanks for being here, Brooklyn Bounce, and everybody else. Tonight I want to talk about how the mob, pretty much since the beginning of time, has recruited new members, the farm teams that they use, and the way they kind of groom these younger men to become gangsters. I'm going to go back quite a bit, and I'm going to talk about some of the earlier gangs that were basically farm teams for the Mafia, the American Mafia. And, I'm going to talk about some of the more modern ones that we know of, that we hear about. Specifically one, of course, that we hear about all the time now. So I'm going to give it a few minutes, and then I'll get into that. Emmanuel Spataro, how you doing? BCP Sask. Johnny, salute FBS, Johnny the Greek from London here again, ready and waiting for action. Glad to see you. Carlos, I hope all you guys got to check out my little, I call them Mob Tube minis. They're little shorts that I do on, different gangsters, different gangster stories. I'm going to be doing a lot of them. The first two I did were about mobsters who have killed members of law enforcement. You guys heard me talking about that subject for a little while now. Let me bring this closer. And I'm going to be doing some other ones. I got some really good ideas. I like those short videos. And I'm going to keep it up. And of course, Jerry the art guy has helped me greatly. Added some little sound effects, some music in the background, changed the lighting a little bit. Those videos look great. And I thank him. And if anybody wants to contact him, his email address is in the ticker down below. So let's see where we are here. All right. So I want to get started. Like I said, pretty much since the beginning of time, the Mafia, the American Mafia, has been using what they call farm teams as a recruitment tool. Basically, they have these kids that are in the streets. They're street guys. They get involved in these gangs. They start off committing small crimes. They kind of work their way up, and in many cases, these are the people that become, made guys and higher ranking members of the Mafia. Some of the most famous gangsters of all times have come from some of these street gangs, if not all of them. And I'm going to get to those in a minute. I'm going to start off by talking about the 5 Points gang. Just a little bit about each of these crews. So I could get to, the point basically, which is how they recruit new members and why they use these farm teams and these street gangs, whatever you want to call them, as a way of finding new members, new associates, things like that. So way back, 1890s, basically the late 1800s to the early 1900s, there was the 5 Points Gang. Now they had, they were obviously important in history. Some of you know a little bit about them. They produced, members like Lucky Luciano, Al Capone, Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, Frankie Yale. These are guys that came from the 5 Points Gang, and obviously rose to pretty high levels um, in the gangster world and in the mob. Um, as you go on a little bit through time, there's Vito Genovese and Carlo Gambino in the 50s. They enlisted soldiers from a Williamsburg, Brooklyn crew called the Jackson Street Boys, or the Jackson Street Gents. I'm sorry. Um, and then you go people like John Gotti, Angelo Ruggiero, Willie Boy Johnson. They came from, they started out, I should say, in the Fulton Rockaway Boys. So that was another one. And then there's the more modern ones that we know of, that a lot of us talk about. The Tanglewood Boys. They were mainly based in Yonkers, but they operated in the Bronx, Westchester, the Upper East Side. Um, they were mainly a farm team for the Lucchese's, and they produced some pretty serious guys as well. The Tanglewood Boys, are a famous gang, if you want to call them that. Um, and they were involved in some crazy shit, just as all these other crews were. All of these crews of younger guys, these farm teams, they all basically specialized in the worst of the worst, drug trafficking, arson, murder, bank robbery, things like that. They had side rackets even as young men, loan sharking, uh, different things like that, sports betting. And this is where they kind of almost made their bones as young men, most of these guys in these crews. So what I'm gonna get to eventually is why it's almost necessary to have these farm teams in order to keep producing new members into the American Mafia. Uh, there was the Giannini crew. Also, that was a very, very vicious crew. Uh, a couple of dozen guys at least, that hung out in at a cafe in Ridgewood in Queens. They also in my neighborhood, Glendale. Um, and they were kind of a farm team for the Bonanos, the Gambinos, the Colombos. Many of them were sons and nephews of Sicilian gangsters. They kind of first came under the radar in the 80s with the Pizza Connection case. Um, there was a lot of Sicilian lineage and connections to the Bonanno Sicilian wing. Um, and then, there was like the Ozone Park Boys. That was Ronnie Armtruccio. You know, they were basically a farm team for the Gambinos. And and in Staten Island, the New Springville Boys, of course. That was Lee Diavanzo's gang, if you want to call it that. And of course, Chris Pacello, who sometimes worked with the Bath Avenue crew. You guys know a lot about him. He came from the New Springville Boys. So all the boroughs, all the families had these farm teams. And then, the Bath Avenue crew, of course, in Brooklyn and in Bath Beach and Bensonhurst. All all the families had them. They were in every borough, like I said, and they're a necessary. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? The best way I could put it is like this. Obviously, in the mafia, the mob, Cosa Nostra, they're not gonna. It's not like Donnie Brasco. Things like that happen, but generally, the mafia is not gonna, take strangers in. They're not gonna. It's not like a made guy is gonna meet a guy at the bar and take him in, and they're gonna become tight, and eventually he's gonna move up the ranks. That happens, and it has happened, but it's not common. The most common way that the mafia finds its new members is they knew them since they were children, and they kind of groom them as the years went on. And like you hear Jimmy Calandra tell it, I'm using him as an example because he's one person that we have telling us about how it all worked. There was also the Rampers, I'm sorry, too, with Gerard Papa and Sammy the Bull. Um, that was another one. But you hear Jimmy tell it in a lot of his stories how it would work. They basically started off as kids hanging out in the neighborhood. They would do favors for the mob guys. You hear it in every story. Henry Hill tells the same type of story in Goodfellas. Um, everybody you listen to, whether it's Sammy the Bull, even if you want to use him as an example, everything he says is bullshit. But John A. Light tells a similar story. I'm pretty sure he got his from Goodfellas. But sorry, I had to throw that in there, guys. Um, they start out doing little favors, go get me a loaf of bread, move my car, wash my car, whatever it may be. And then it'll start out like you've heard Jimmy say, go break this window, or go deliver this money, or go, pass this message, whatever it may be, and it turns into bigger things. The kids start getting involved in their own crimes without anyone's direction, and they're committing robberies, armed robberies, burglaries, assaults. They, like I said, they got their own little rackets on the street. They're loaning money. They're taking bets. They're doing things like that, and they're like a junior mafia, so to speak. I mean, if you take a crew like Bath Avenue, for example, they were like their own little mob. They had their own crew. They just weren't made guys. They weren't officially part of any organization, and that goes for all of them. Basically, that's how all these street gangs and farm teams work. Um, so this is why this is where members come from. They were always there, basically. They were just, they start out as kids. And because these mob guys have known them since they were kids, they know what they're capable of. They've seen them get in trouble before. In many cases, they've already seen these kids do time. So they know what they're getting. And, because they've known them their whole lives, there's no worries about, are they members of law enforcement, or are they this, or are they that? In a neighborhood like Bensonhurst, Howard Beach, places like that, your reputation follows you. So if you were a rat at one time, everybody in your neighborhood's going to know that. Whatever it may be, they're already going to know this before they get too involved with you. So it's like they let these guys do their things on the street, and they watch them, and they give them little jobs here and there. They might help them out, whatever the case may be. And as these kids get older, the crimes get more and more serious. Before you know it, they're committing murders, things of that nature. And in many cases, these street gang members, or whatever you want to call them, um, wind up being inducted into a family. And more often than not, the family they're inducted into coincides with what farm team or street gang they were with, because like I mentioned in here, most of these street gangs are already with a made guy or some higher up. And that's how it's decided. Like I said, certain ones, the Bath Avenue crew, you guys know, they were with Anthony Spiro, the Bonanos. Um, Same thing basically with the new Springville boys. They were the kind of Bonanos and Colombo family. I didn't mention like the Bay Parkway kids. They Colombos also. Um, all these different crews. Uh, usually already had some ties to one of the five families. Seven and nine, yes, that's another one. Um, so I guess it depends on how you look at it. See, the reason I was thinking about this earlier is because I was actually listening to Jimmy do his show. He did like a 2 hour live show today. It was a good one, and I was listening to some of the things he was saying, and I've listened to him before talk about this stuff, and it's like, there's different ways you can look at it. You could say that these kids are groomed and they're almost taught and raised to be gangsters by some of these older men and members of these families. On the other hand, these kids are in the street. They're already in many situations. They're already troubled kids. They're getting in trouble on their own, and they kind of aspire to be Kings Highway boys also, yes. Pleasant Avenue, yeah. President Street also. They aspire to be made guys. Look at the Bath Avenue crew. All of those guys. What did they say? They basically, made a vow to each other, that they would one day become made members in the Bonanno family. That's how a lot of these kids are. That's how when you grow up in those neighborhoods, that's like becoming president. You become a made man. Let me see something. What street in Ridgewood? 77th, I believe, Emmanuel. Um, and they hung out in Glendale, like where 77th met 74th, around that area. And look at them now. Well, yeah, I mean, and that's eventually what we're going to get to because, as you know, in that life, and I wasn't part of that life, but I can read, I can listen, I can watch, and we all know that there's only a few ways. Um, there's only a few endings, and none of them are desirable. Of course, a lot of them never take the time to think about that until it's too late because you're involved in that fast life, and they're doing their thing on the street. You get caught up in it. Even me, selling drugs and shit. That's all I was doing, and I got caught up in it for a long time. I was addicted to the streets. I was addicted to being out there. I was addicted to making fast money. So I can only imagine what these guys who actually had some real credibility behind them. Um, I can only imagine what it's like for them to really feel that kind of power when they got an actual family behind them or they're on record with a made guy. I mean, it's got to be intoxicating, I'm sure. Chris Drager, you talking about me being mad at you? I'm not mad at you, bro. I don't know if that's if you were talking about me or not. But you know, with each of these gangs, okay, it's not like everybody in them uh winds up going somewhere or getting made or becoming anyone really. A lot of them just, nothing special happens. They do their thing in the street, and some of them grow old, some of them never make it to grow old, some of them go to prison, but some of them reach, massive heights. And it seems like, obviously, just like with any other group, there's going to be certain people that are picked out of these crews by the organization that's above them. So take the Bath Avenue crew. As we know, Well, you could even start with the Rampers. Sammy Gravano. He was a part of that gang, and he wound up not only getting made, but eventually becoming the underboss of the Gambino family. And then you take crews like the Bath Avenue crew, for example. Now, nobody in that crew ever really got to rise to any serious heights, but there was five main guys, right? There was Tommy, Joey, Fabrizio, Jimmy, and Paulie. Now, Paulie died very young. To hear Jimmy tell it, and from everything I've read, Paulie, if he didn't do what he did and wind up getting killed, he would have most likely been the first guy to get made. He was definitely working hard um, to get that opportunity. Jimmy also says they thought it would be Georgie before anyone, but Georgie wound up dying at a very young age as well. So, out of the guys that were left, um, Jimmy was telling the story today. There's Jimmy says Joey Calco was just never going to get made. Okay, that they had a plan for him, that they knew eventually they were going to kill him. Right, so that was going to be his destiny. That's the way it looked. Um, Tommy Reynolds, uh, I'm not even sure he could have been made. I know he had Irish blood. Um, I don't know his whole story. Jimmy told me once. I don't quite remember, but I'm not sure if there was ever a possibility of Tommy being made. Um, Jimmy went to prison, and when he got out, he switched over and went with Matty Madonna and the Lucchese's. Um, anyway, and I believe he said that he was going to be um, made, that he was told that he would become part of the Lucchese's. But basically, what they wound up with, especially since Joey had taken off to Sicily, Italy, wherever he went after he killed Jack Sharon, the only one left really was Fabrizio Di Fran. Sorry about that, guys, if I cut out. The only one left was Fabrizio. And he's the one out of all of them that wound up being made. And to hear Jimmy tell it, Fabrizio is the last person he would ever imagined getting made. He never thought Fabrizio would get made. Jimmy has told the story that Fabrizio is basically running errands for them when Jimmy went away. He gets out, and Fabrizio's got his button, but didn't last long. I think he was only on the street a couple of years after he got made, and he went to prison, and he gets out, in what, 9 years, and who knows what'll happen when he gets out. Fabrizio might get out and become a boss after all that time he did. Uh, he might come out and decide he never wants anything to do with that life anymore, and go start a new life in Florida or something, like so many do. I don't know. I guess nobody knows. But that's what happened with them, for example. But to hear him tell the story about how when they were little kids and they started out doing these little errands and stuff for for Spiro, and I guess Tommy Karate at one point, they were kind of, I think, under him before Spiro and Joe Benanti. um and they just kind of, and that's how it happens in the street. That's with any of us. You don't have to be associated with the mob in any way, shape, or form. If you're a street kid, you start out doing little stupid shit, vandalizing stuff, whatever it may be, stealing here and there, shoplifting, whatever dumb shit it may be. And then, as the years goes on, as the years go on, the crimes get more and more serious. I know it was like that with us, me and my friends. We were just basically, bored kids, and we didn't like authority, and I think we enjoyed the adrenaline rush of breaking the law, getting in trouble, and we started out doing stupid shit, like I said, like uh you know we were doing dumb shit in the beginning, vandalism, stealing, just like I said before. But then we wound up doing a lot of burglaries. We'd break into houses all the time, cars, break into cars, steal whatever we could. Um, and then depending on which one of us you're talking about, some of us did different things than others. Some of the guys got more into like home invasion type stuff. I did a little bit of that. I did a home invasion, a couple of other things, some bad shit. But I basically wound up, my thing was selling drugs. Once I figured out the money that's in it, how fast you can make it, and just the rush of the whole thing, that's what I was hooked on. And a lot of my friends honestly didn't go that route. Some of them got caught their first time and decided that's it, I'm done. I never want to see the inside of a jail again. And they went on to live regular lives. Some of them got killed. Some of them went to prison. Um, and some of them just kept doing what they're doing, and they're still knuckleheads in the street doing the same shit. Fucking, 25 years later. It just depends on it depends on who. It depends on who it is. Everybody's different. I want to see something because U.S. Army Combat Medic asked a question. Ah, shit, where did it go? FBS, what percentage would you say become made from these gangs? Uh, that's a hard question because honestly, like I said, I believe that I guess I could say it like this. Not everybody from these gangs becomes a made guy, but every made guy probably came from one of these gangs, if that makes sense. Um, Because obviously there's some guys you could look at the history of the Rampers or the Bath Avenue crew or the New Springville boys or the Giannini crew or Fulton Rockaway boys, Five Points Gang, any of these that didn't wind up making it anywhere in the criminal world. They just, um, nothing big happened for them, regardless of, why it may have been. I don't know. Maybe it's they didn't have the capabilities that that were needed. They weren't liked by the right people. I don't know. So, as far as the percentage from the gangs, I don't know. It's a hard one. But like I said, I don't think everybody from the gangs is made. We know that for a fact. But I think most made guys, not all, but most, chances are they were at one time part of one of these crews, even if it's not more, one of the more well-known ones. It was a neighborhood crew of kids that was getting in trouble since they were a very young age, and the neighborhood guys took notice of them and said, hey, these guys are capable, especially once these kids start doing shit like murder, because the mob needs soldiers and they need people who are capable of things like, I think you've heard Franzese say it. And you've heard a lot of mob guys say. Um, Usually, mob guys do one of two things well. Some do both. You got somebody, I guess, like Sammy, who did both. But you got somebody like Franzese who only did one. You either are a good earner or you are good at doing the work, or you enjoy doing the work, and you're just a dangerous individual. Um, it depends, I guess. Um, this is how they pick members, and this is what they need. They need people who are able to be, enforcers to some extent, who are able to carry out murders, things like that. But then they also need the businessmen type of guys like Michael Franzese, people like that who bring in, shit tons of money to the bosses. You're welcome, U.S. Army Combat Medic. Jane Creek is probably right. Well, yeah. See, it's hard to tell because you don't know how many members a lot of these crews have. Some of them had 5 members, some of them had dozens of members. Some of these street gangs were just huge. So yeah, I'd say it's a low percentage. But you got to figure, how many members are in the mob versus how many of these you know street gang kids are out there. Um, it's a small amount compared to how many kids are actually out there in these street gangs and stuff. So, like I said, I think most of the made guys probably came from a crew like that. But definitely not everybody in these crews get made. I think the majority of them don't. Yeah, Big Carm, you're most likely right. One per crew, something like that. Yeah. And over time, maybe one, some of these crews have been operating for decades. Some of these street gangs, have been alive for a long time or were, whether it had been the 70s and 80s or like the Five Points gang, you're talking about, 30 years or so. Um, some of them are short lived, but did I ever hit a home of a known drug dealer? You mean deliberately rob a drug dealer? Yeah, I told a story about that. I robbed. Now I was a young kid. It wasn't a ton of money. We got about a little over $7,000. Um, you know, uh, about maybe a pound and a half of weed, whatever it was. We took the guy's gun, his triple beam scales. We took everything. But that was one, yeah. But he was just he was selling weed. Um, did your boots? Let's see. Well, was there a fake Drager in here? Yeah, I agree, big car. Well, everything's different now. That's why it's hard. You gotta. Yeah, yeah, Florida attorney. You're not kidding. Definitely, absolutely, yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's different now. You know what I mean? And I'm not in the street. I don't know. I can't tell you how different, but I know things are different because we're not seeing the same things. Um, when I was a kid and stuff, mob hits were all the time. And I lived in New York, so you heard even as a kid, you hear about them all the time. They're in the fucking news. They're in the neighborhood. They're in the neighboring boroughs, shit like that. And you know what's going on, and even no matter where you lived, back during like John Gotti's days as boss and stuff. I mean, it was national news. A lot of this stuff that went on, like the Castellano hit, things like that. Didn't matter where you lived, you'd hear about that. But it's not the same anymore. There's no kill orders. There's, they don't want to. It's just you almost can't even blame them because they can't operate the way they want to because things aren't the same as they used to be. I mean, now, if you kill somebody, it's only a matter of time. You're going to somebody's gonna fucking tell on you. Somebody's gonna roll. They're gonna flip, and you're fucked. Now you're on the hook for a murder. That's just the way it is. It isn't going to take long. There's so many people out there willing to rat, and like I said, Tom Lochner, 4.99. Thank you very much, sir. Um, there's so many people. The fear of the government has overtaken people's fear of the mafia themselves. So whether if the choice is to a lot of these guys, if the choice is, hey, I rat these guys out, and I may be in some danger, or um, I'm a stand-up guy and I go to prison, spend the rest of my life in jail, but I'm always seen as a stand-up guy and I get respect and stuff like that. People are like, fuck that, because they don't want to go to prison for life anymore. People aren't built the same as they used to be. The old timers are gone for the most part. So now when they hear life in prison, or even shit, in some cases, some of these fucking guys could be facing 10 years. And they're like, nope, who do I got to tell on? They don't care. They're not worried. They're not scared anymore. Look at some of these guys. Most of them, they don't even leave their fucking neighborhood anymore. They stay right where they did their, they're telling right where they told on everybody. The same neighborhood these guys are from. They stay in Brooklyn. They stay in Queens. Um, They don't even leave. Fucking Chris Pacello. This guy is a multi-millionaire in Miami now. You know what I mean? He opens new clubs and restaurants all the time and shit. He just bought I think he just bought like a $3 million fucking house. It's in the newspaper. His house is in the newspaper and nothing happens to him. So when guys on the street see shit like that, they're like, fuck, what am I afraid of? I'm not going to prison. What are they going to do? Nothing. I'll just tell on them. That's the mentality now. That's why the mob can't ever be what it was as far as I see. Because how could it be? You can't just kill people in the middle of the fucking street anymore, and the whole neighborhood stays silent, even if they know you did it, and nobody saw anything, nobody heard anything. No, you're on 60 different cameras every time you walk down the street. There's nothing that's not being recorded. There's informants every fucking where. I know that even from the drug business. That's why I say, a lot of these guys, they don't realize the people that are still in the street, they don't realize they're talking to rats every day. Because you don't know everybody that's a rat. Because a lot of these guys in the street that I dealt with, I found out a lot of them never even did a controlled buy. They just gave information or, they told tales. So you never even know who's a fucking rat anymore. It's not like there's a label on them. You know what I mean? You guys, I'm sure in that life wear wires and every fucking thing else undetected. How could these guys operate the way they used to? The technology put an end to it. That's all. It's not even the feds or rats that put an end to it. It's the technology. Everywhere you go, you're on camera. I mean, look, even for example, even me, last time I got out of jail for a felony, the state police guy came and took my DNA. I wasn't going to be released until I gave a DNA sample. I didn't even know that because my first felony case was before they established that law that felons now have to give a DNA sample. I think in Pennsylvania that was in 2004, and I had my first felony case in 2000, something like that. So when I got out in 2017, I was like, I got to give a fucking DNA sample. And he said, yeah. And I listen, I'm a criminal at heart, I guess. So even in my mind, I was like, oh my God, I can't do shit. I can't. If you rob a fucking bank now, your DNA is all over the fucking. You better rob a bank that you go to regularly, because if not, your DNA is right there on the fucking the counter, whatever. I mean, it's the door handle. I mean, and that's not even to mention the cameras and the fucking everything else that's out there. Your fucking car is basically a computer. Anywhere you go, your car keeps a record of that shit. They can find out exactly where you drove to, when you drove there. It's just crazy, man. Yeah, Boots, a lot of them. A lot of them. So it's crazy, man. I don't know, I don't know if there's ever going to be anything. Yeah, unless you're pulling a heat scene for real. That's about your only chance. I don't know if there's ever going to be anything recognizable to what the mob used to be. I highly doubt it, but they're always going to do their thing. See, they'll get smarter. They've already been doing it the last couple of decades. They'll get into more, they'll get into fucking different types of crimes, more high tech shit. They'll figure out different ways to make money. They're always going to be able to provide services that are in demand, certain things. Whether it's if you want to place your bet with a guy on the street rather than at a casino now, so you don't have to pay taxes if you win, whatever it may be, or you just don't have the money up front. There's always going to be bookies like that. There'll always be loan sharks. There's always going to be drugs. Yeah, facial recognition too. Exactly, bro. It's fucking insane, man. Yeah, they scanned my retina. Yeah, that's how they don't even let you out of jail any fucking more without it. They, when you go in, they scan it. When you come out, they scan it. Um, it's just wild. It's a different world, man. So people aren't capable of those things anymore. At least not organizations and stuff. It's 1,000 times harder to get away with anything. This is another reason I am relieved that I don't break the law any fucking more because you don't even know. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong. I still have a few years of worrying left because when you were doing certain things out on the street and stuff, you know, you might think you're free because you've gone a couple of years, you don't have no warrants, you haven't gotten picked up. Nope, it's not the case. You could be charged with with most crimes uh, for up to at least 7 years. Um, Different crimes have different statutes of limitations, but like drugs, for example, um, every time you make a fucking sale, unless you're absolutely positive that that was not a setup, for the next 7 years, you got to worry. And honestly, it's even longer than that because once they file the charges, they can arrest you 100 years from now once the charges are filed. You don't have to be picked up within the 7 years, but they have 7 years to charge you. So it's scary. I like how you spelled iPhone. Good point, Vic. It's scary. I listen. You know how many friends? Every time I was in jail, I was terrified when they run that little missile on you before they set up your release and all that. Because you don't know. If you're sitting in jail, you'd be sitting in there a couple of fucking months, and on your release date, they come in and rearrest you on a new charge, especially with drug dealers. Happens all the time. So, I had a friend, Angel. Last time I was in there, this dude had done. I think he got an 11 and a half to 23 in the county or some shit like that, and he had done his time with good time. I think he might have done 9 months, something like that. But he thought he was getting out. And the day he was waiting to be called bag and baggage, they came and they served the warrant and basically rearrested him on a new drug charge, something that had happened months before he went to jail for what he was already in for. And he wound up going upstate. I think it was like 3 years before he got out. So uh, it's just, it's not worth it anymore, man. That's another thing, I learned. That's another reason I'm done, man. The fucking informants are everywhere, man, and you don't know anymore. You don't know what kind of they always come up with different ways to set you up, do controlled buys, shit like that. I had a friend, right? This dude, he sold heroin, right? And he got a call one night from a regular customer, and he uh he went and met the kid, and I think he brought him like a couple of bundles, okay? And he walked away. He met the dude at his car, made the exchange, and then he walked away. And he was walking up the street to go somewhere else, right? So he's walking up his block, and the drug task force guys pull up to him. Now, here's the thing: they're not, unless you know who these guys are, you wouldn't know they're drug task force guys. These detectives and shit, they dress like they dress like they're going to a barbecue. They don't dress like you see on TV and shit. They look like regular guys. So unless you know, and a lot of us knew who these guys were because we've seen them at raids and stuff like that, you wouldn't know what they're doing. But my friend, he knew who they were. So he knew that he was just set up. But what they'll do is like what they did to me in my first case. They don't necessarily want you on one sale. They want to build a case, especially if they think you're at any decent level. So they'll just fucking keep racking up, sales on you. They'll get you on as many sales as they can. And then when they're all done with their CI or whatever, they'll arrest you when they're ready. Like I said, they have a long time to do it. So he's walking up the street. Now he's got the money in his pocket. They pull over to him. They don't stop him or anything because they're not acting like cops. They just pull up to him and they say, oh, no, 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 no. I'm sorry. I got the fucking story confused. They were acting as cops. This is his story. So it was told to me once. They were acting as cops. They pulled up to him and they said, hey, we got a call that you've been out here panhandling. Now it was the dead of winter, so he had like a mask around his face, his hood up, a beanie on, big heavy coat, all that shit. So they were like, we got a call that you were panhandling. So he's like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just walking to a friend's house. And they were like, well, do us a favor and pull your mask down so we can take a picture of it, just so we can show it to the person who made the call and make sure it wasn't you. All this nonsense, right? So he was like, I'm not going to pull my mask down. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just walking to a friend's. So they kept on him about it. He pulled his mask down and they took a picture of him and they drove off. Now he wasn't arrested for, I think, over a year. Okay, on that. The reason they had done that night is because they watched him make the sale. They watched him sell the heroin. But they got to be able to prove in court that it was him, right? They can't just say, "Oh, we saw him leave from, that address or our CI called his cell phone." No. They want to know, they got to be able to say in court it was definitively you, because if not, you could just say, "No, there was a friend at my house, maybe he left and sold something, I don't know." So they insisted on taking his picture. They did, and boom, they had him right there because they just watched him make the delivery. They got a picture of his face. He was, ID'd, and boom. Later on, when they arrested him, they had a solid case. They did the same thing with me in my first case. They let me walk for 10 months. They pulled me over after the sale to tell me I had a blinking a tail light or brake light or some shit. And they took my ID, and then they let me go on my way. They didn't check for no marked money, nothing like that. And it was 10 months before they arrested me on that case. But in the subsequent days, I had the same CI calling me, asking me for different things. But once I got pulled over that day, I knew something was wrong and I wouldn't sell anything to him anymore. But they were using him in other cases, so they waited 10 months until they were done with him. And then they issued all the warrants at once. They arrested all of us at once. But the reason they pulled me over to check my ID, I didn't have a blinking taillight or anything. They just needed proof that it was me driving the car that the sale was just made in. So, that's how they do it. Yeah, a lot of the time, Kelly Connect. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, same with me. I had a brand new, it was you know what it was? You remember 99 of the fucking Kia Sportage? They were new. It might have even been the first year for the Kia Sportage, that little SUV. That's what I had. I had a little gold one. And the fucking thing was brand new. I'm like, how is there a fucking blinking taillight? And I brought it to my brother's because he's basically like a mechanic, and he checked it out. He's like, there's nothing wrong at all. I said, I knew something happened. Let's see. Johnny says, motherfuckers, one time they let me go through reception and actually released me out of the prison, and the feds pulled up to me and arrested me on a warrant, put me back in. Yep. Yeah, man. It's crazy, bro. So that's one of the shittiest parts about ever having been a criminal, because you think, you know what? I haven't committed a crime in 2 years. I'm good. That shit don't matter. It doesn't matter. There's a long shelf life on those crimes. They can decide, they might have had you from the, most likely with a drug dealer. The minute you make the sale, you're caught. It's just a matter of when they're going to come get you. See, before that first bust, I always thought once I drive off or I walk away and I'm good, then that's it. I'm good. I didn't get set up. I didn't realize until they picked me up 10 months after that sale. I said to my lawyer, I'm like, how the fuck could they wait 10 months? He's like, it was an ongoing investigation. They could do whatever they want. There's a 7-year statute of limitations. I said, why didn't they get me when they pulled me over? And that's when he told me. He was like, well, what did they do when they pulled you over? I said, they said I had a blinking taillight. They asked for my ID and issued me a warning. He was like, yeah, bro, they were just checking your ID because they needed to make sure it was you. And that's how they do it. Yeah, I know, Carmine Minio. I know. Shit, the sentences weren't even that bad. 20 years ago. It's just crazy. Oh, good for you, man. 20 years, not bad. I wish I could say the same. The first time I got out was 2001. Oh, thank you, my beautiful Shanna. 99 cent super sticker. How nice of you. I love you, baby. Um. Oh well, those guys. Yeah. I mean, well, listen. I was even thinking because, like I said, Jimmy was telling his story earlier, and I was even thinking, like, man, um, not even about them. It just made me think about like what happened with that lady in Staten Island, right? How the fuck do you sleep at night after that, knowing that as soon as one of the guys that knows about this gets caught, there's a good chance I'm going to prison for the rest of my fucking life. Or any serious crime like that you commit with other people or that other people know about. Um, how do you know what happens? Uh, how do you sleep? Listen, I committed a lot less serious crimes than murder, and it kept me up at night for fucking years because I didn't know when or if it would come back to haunt me. Um, I'm still paranoid all the fucking time. You never know. It's a life. It follows you, man. It's not like, oh, I quit being a criminal. I'm done. I'm good. I'm free to go. No, you don't know, man. You don't know. You never know. Uh, what was I gonna say though? That was gonna lead me to something else. Hmm. I don't remember now. Let's see. New Jersey State Trooper pulled me over because I was driving the only car in area at 1 a.m. He stuck his nose in my car to see if he smelled alcohol, asked some questions, told him I'm not answering. Best way to do it. Never talk. BCP Sask. Well, yeah. Let me tell you something. We have longer sentences than any fucking where. But yeah, you're right. I know. But listen, this is we the United States of America has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's prisoners. How does that make sense? What, we just have more criminals? No. No. It's this they'll put you in fucking jail for driving without a license. They'll put you in jail for anything. Um, but that's a different subject really. Yeah, I think mine too. I think I was 14 or 15. My first serious charge was 17 though. That was an aggravated assault. But I had some bullshit charges as a kid. I was on probation even as a fucking juvenile all the time. New beginnings with Shanna says hi everyone, happy Saturday. Um so back to what I was talking about. It's part of the reason I was thinking about this whole thing. Sorry, let me plug my phone in. With the farm teams and the these guys basically starting out as kids and almost being groomed into becoming gangsters because everybody has to take responsibility for their own actions. So I know it's like, oh, the kid he wasn't groomed to be a gangster, he wanted to be a gangster. Well, it's a kid. So it depends, a kid a lot of the time is going to do what he's taught or what he's shown, or if there's a role model of his, or someone he sees as a role model, or somebody he looks up to in the neighborhood that says, hey, do this, that kid just thinks it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Because this older person is doing it, this person that they look up to. Whether or not a lot of these kids would have wound up on the wrong path anyway, I don't know. But you have some gangsters too who they bring their own kids into it. Um it. I don't know. I don't know what to say, but it's funny because we talk about these gangsters. We do shows about them. Um, there's movies made, documentaries, it's pop culture. There's fucking dozens and dozens of best-selling books going back decades. Um, but I think we forget sometimes, and this is coming from me. Okay, I'm not one of these guys that's like, oh, the mafia is bad, blah blah blah, and all gangsters are. But listen, I think we forget sometimes that these guys are or were gangsters. Um, I think they're romanticized a little too much. I think we all could agree on that. Um, but I think those are the real fanboys. I don't think the fanboys are the people who study the history of the mafia and are intrigued by it and take interest in the subject of it. I think the fanboys are the ones who constantly act as if these guys um, were the good guys, all of them, all the time. They'll say like, well, they protected the neighborhoods. In some cases, yeah. But in a lot of cases, no. In a lot of cases, they flooded those very neighborhoods with drugs. They extorted other Italians in their own neighborhoods, people who were just trying to run a business, things like that. They preyed on, on people with whether they had gambling problems, addiction issues, financial hardships. This is how they make money. So I think the real fanboys are the guys that constantly act as if all these gangsters are just these poor old men and stuff that um, didn't have anything coming to them. You know what I mean? They were just good guys who protected their neighborhood. And the older I got, the more I started to realize, listen, they're gangsters, and you can't be an angel and be a gangster at the same time. Same thing with my life. Some of the guys that I looked up to as a kid, because I was always around older guys, the guys on the street that were really making money and stuff. I looked up to those guys. That's who I learned from. I grew up to realize that these were bad fucking people. Not all of them, but most of them were really bad people. Predators in many ways, some of them. And somebody else make the comment like, "Oh, well, you got a picture of John Gotti hanging behind you on your wall." Listen, I'm not saying um, that I don't still, um, in my mind, maybe romanticize that life and that lifestyle a little bit, especially since I've never lived it and I look at it from the outside in. People who look at it from the outside in are usually the ones um, who do see it in that type of way, in that light, like, wow, what an amazing life, what it must have been like to live like that. It's the guys who actually lived it that'll tell you, no, it's except for a douchebag here or there. Most guys will tell you, no, that's not what you want for your life, and you're lucky you never lived that. Like I said, like John Gotti, for example, a lot of things I respect about the man. And my whole life, basically, as a kid and stuff, I absolutely looked up to John Gotti. And when you're in the streets and you're doing your thing, you're always gonna look up to somebody like John Gotti. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I always will in a lot of ways because there's things about that man that you just don't find in people, especially anymore. But I do always keep in mind now that I've gotten older, that all of these guys, every one of them that was a gangster, was a gangster. I mean, first and foremost, a lot of them were excellent family men and fathers, in some cases, husbands. things like that. But they were gangsters also. So that's the way I see that. So it depends on how you look at it. As with these farm teams and stuff. Were these older guys that were recruiting them, these made guys, these higher ranking guys in the mob and stuff, were they doing these kids any favors? Um, I don't know, but I don't think so. So anyway, this is just some of the stuff that's on my mind tonight, guys. And I wanted to talk about a little bit. I actually really enjoyed doing this show, and I appreciate all of you guys being here. Everybody, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'm going to read some comments. Truth, the mob was bad and did a lot of bad. Yeah, I mean, who are we kidding here when it really comes down to it? Like, I hear some of these other guys, and they're like, oh, that poor man got put in prison for the rest of his life. He was already 70 years old or something. But okay, but define poor man. Like, I mean, this is like in the one case I heard this, they were talking about a specific gangster. I said, you do realize that he had numerous people killed, right? Like, and there's that story. Well, there's that thing. Well, like, oh, everybody involved knew the stakes coming in, and like as if that, like, oh, you know what? Then you're right. Yeah, fuck it, kill him. Like, come on, guys. I mean, seriously, and not always. Not always. Not that's the myth and the romanticism of the mafia is that they only kill people that are part of that life. As we've seen in many cases, that's not always the truth. Mostly, but not always. Lee danced on Soul Train. Oh my god. I don't even know who Marie is. Why is there a Tupac conversation going on? Oh my god, how happy Gunsmoke would be. Yeah, I watched a little bit of stuff with Larry Lawton. I think he's got a pretty big channel, doesn't he? I got arrested for loitering, lol, whatever that is. Oh my god. Oh my god. Thank you. See, you can't. This is what I mean. Like every little thing that you say is analyzed. Got to be very careful. People's feelings get hurt. And just to reiterate, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that everybody in that life was a horrible person. I'm saying that when we forget about most of these mob guys while we're, talking them up and, telling their stories and in many ways looking up to them, what we tend to forget is that um, they were gangsters. Even though that's the point of why we're talking about them, sometimes we let that slip our mind. You know what I'm saying, Carlos? Uh, I can't say anything the right way, or I'm gonna hear shit from somebody. It's unbelievable. Um, I don't know, man. But you know what? Explaining myself has gotten old, and I really don't give a fuck who's mad at me anymore. So, let's see. Did he really say that, Bob Gray? Yeah, I don't know why he would say that. I didn't hear that. I don't. First of all, I don't believe that. I think I don't see Giancotti doing anything. Spent a long time in prison. My guess would be that he's just relaxing. But I wouldn't talk about anybody if I thought they were active. That's just me. So even if I thought he was active, well, especially if I thought he was active, I wouldn't talk about him at all. Let's see. Lee Cole was in the Purple Gang. Oh, the Purple Gang is another one I forgot to mention. Machiavelli the Don lives on. There's really a Tupac conversation going on in here, huh? Ah. All right. Well, hold on. Brooklyn Bounce, please subscribe. Every time he never misses a beat. Brooklyn Bounce, please subscribe to Gunsmoke the Don, FBS, and Jimmy Calandra, A Bath Avenue Story, New Beginnings with Shanna. Absolutely. And before I go, let me please drop the link to Brooklyn Bounce's channel because, like I said, this is a very good man, a retired New York firefighter. And I know he doesn't like me saying this and he'll get mad at me, but in my mind, this guy is a true hero. And he is starting a channel where he's going to be doing a lot of different cool stuff. I've talked about it before, and I would appreciate it if you guys would subscribe. I know I ask that a lot, and people, don't like to subscribe to all this different stuff. I understand. But this one is particularly important to me. So I'm going to drop his link now, and I'll stay on for a minute or two. Hopefully, you guys will go over and subscribe to his channel. I just dropped the link. Thank you guys in advance. Gene Borello is in the Louis Vuitton crew. Why don't you talk about Anthony Raimondi? I don't know what else to say about the guy. I said so much. Did you look through my videos? I did several videos. I even went head to head with him on Stax's show. That's on my channel and Stax's channel. I don't know what else to say. He's been pretty quiet, and honestly, I don't listen to his things. I like Stax, but I don't listen when Raymundi's on. So I don't even know. Has he said new crazy shit? If he has, I'll gladly speak out about it. We need a Gene Gotti and Jackie the Nose interview. Jesus Christ, what I would give. Never happened. Bronx Bomber Di Stefano. The mob, the streets, we know what can happen. I'm glad I'm still alive. I just turned 50. Don't look at all. Don't look it at all. Keep working out, kids. Stay strong. Richie Step, Bronx Bomber, VVC for life. FBS, Jimmy. Thank you, guy. Thank you, Bronx Bomber. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. Everybody who's subscribing to Brooklyn Bounce, thank you. And Brooklyn Bounce, you could drop that a couple of more times if you'd like. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think, listen, I don't think he's in any way involved anymore. It's all right, Brooklyn Bounce. Oh, I didn't talk about Carlos, huh? Yeah. Another interesting one. The Kennedy thing. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to get going. I think this was a really good show, and I don't want to fuck it up by staying on too long. So thank you guys very much for everything. I appreciate your support as always. I love you guys, each and every one of you. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please hit the like button. It's very important. And I will see you guys next time, most likely tomorrow. Until then, salute.